Hello, my name's Anthony Johnston. I write comics and games, and this is my favourite quote about the creative process. Of course I still get stage fright. The day I don't is the day I might as well hang up my hat and retire. Laurence Olivier. Or possibly John Gielgud. Or possibly even Paul Daniels. The truth is, I have no idea. I think it was Olivier, but it could have been Gielgud, and it really might even have been Paul Daniels. Or it could even have been someone else entirely. I read this quote years ago in an interview, and I have tried to track it down since, but without any luck. I simply cannot say for certain who it was, but it doesn't matter, because the point is that it could be any of them. This feeling is universal among creators and performers. Let me show you something that happened on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. First, a journalist called Ben Cook tweeted this. So he's read the new Doctor Who script by Neil Gaiman and thinks it's great. Neil Gaiman retweeted this and explained why. Because he was relieved. He'd been nervous about the script and hadn't known if anyone would like it. Now, as you can see, a fan then replied to Neil, asking him if that meant that the nervousness of submitting a story never goes away. Now, before we go on, let's just remember, this is Neil Gaiman. One of the most successful, popular and critically lauded writers in the world today. If anyone should feel confident about his work, surely it's this guy. But this is what he said and the thread that followed. In case you're not familiar with those other names, we have best-selling, multiple award-winning sci-fi author John Scalzi, best-selling, multiple award-winning comics author Warren Ellis, and Will freaking Wheaton. And they all say the same thing any creator will tell you about whether the nervousness ever goes away. No, it doesn't. And that's a good thing. Being a creator is a bit weird. And not just because we work in our underwear and talk to imaginary friends all day long. It's weird because we have a strange relationship with ego and humility. These things are two sides of the same coin, two sides of the same brain, you could say. We all need them both to function. Some situations call for ego, some situations call for humility. But creators are weird because what we do requires both of these things in fairly equal measure at the same time. See, we have to be egotistical. And creators, let me assure you, have massive egos. Don't believe anyone who says they don't. They are lying to you for the purposes of public humility, which I'll talk about later. But why do we all have massive egos? Well, because we literally make things up in our heads and then expect other people to enjoy the things we've just made up. Now that's important. This isn't just about the act of creation. Even if we never published anything, we would still create, because that's kind of a disease we can never shake. And please understand, I am talking here about all creators, writers, musicians, artists, directors, dancers. Deep down, we're all the same. But I'm a writer, so I'm talking about writing and publishing and reading. Just take it for granted that I'm also talking about performing, recording, directing, acting, dancing, and so on. So beyond the act of creation, the act of publishing, that is pure ego at work. We think the things that we make are so brilliant, so much better than the things other people make, that those other people will want to read them. And why wouldn't they? They are, after all, brilliant works of staggering genius. Except actually we don't really think anyone wants to read our work. What we really think is that we're all frauds. Terrible, awful frauds who don't know what we're doing, are just barely getting away with it, and live in constant fear that one day there'll be a knock at the door and the writing police will be there to say, all right, Sonny, you've had your fun, but the game's up. We all know you can't really write, now get back to stacking shelves. So which is true? Do we all think we're brilliant, or do we all think we're frauds? And the answer is both, all the time, and that's okay. There are two conflicts going on in every creator. First, there's the private war. When we're producing work, we go up and down like a yo-yo. Within the space of a minute, we'll go from, this is great, I'm a genius, to, oh, this is awful, I'm a hack, and back again over and over and over. I can literally type a line of dialogue, sit back and think, oh, this is brilliant, and want to tell everybody about it. And then the very next line that I type, I might look at it and think, oh God, what am I doing with my life? It's terrible. Iris Murdoch said, every book is the wreck of a perfect idea. And it's not just books. Directors feel the same way about their films, musicians feel the same way about their songs, developers feel the same way about their video games, and so on and so on. So when we're creating, we do our best to suppress the bad voices because they can cripple us. That's what writer's block is, really. It's the stage fright, an internal editor telling us that we're rubbish, that we're going to screw everything up, that nothing we do will ever be any good, so why even bother trying? But for the most part, creators learn to suppress that part of us. When we're creating, the humility gets put in a box. It has to, or we'd never actually create anything. And then there's the second conflict, the public war. When we publish something and put it out into the world. And that's where the fun really begins, because then the ego and humility have a pitched battle inside our heads. You know when creators do interviews and we say things like, oh, I couldn't have done it without Bob and Jim's help. And really, I write for myself. If other people like my work, that's just a bonus. And then when people do like it, we say, oh, I'm so honoured and amazed that other people like it. I never imagined so many people would want to read it. That's not true. None of that is true. What we're actually thinking is that we're brilliant. Our contribution was obviously the most important. Anyone who doesn't like it is an idiot. And the fact that people do like it is right and just, and no surprise to us whatsoever, because we are a genius. Except none of that's true either. What we're actually thinking is that it didn't come out like we wanted, and it kind of falls apart towards the end, and there's a big plot hole that we hope nobody else notices, and basically we just don't think it's very good. So once again, which is true, genius or fraud? And again, the answer is both, all the time, and that's okay. So if the ego is dominant during creation, and the ego and humility are fighting with one another during publication, does that mean that the humility never really gets a look in by itself? No. This is where we come back to Olivier, or Gielgud, or Daniels, or whoever the fucking hell it was. The reason stage fright is good, the reason that Neil Gaiman and John Scalzi and Warren Ellis and all of us get nervous about our work is because it means we care about it. The only reason not to be nervous about how something will be received is because you're convinced that it's good enough. And when you think something is good enough, you stop caring about whether it can be better. Creators, good ones, the ones who endure and make a career out of it, are always learning. We are always striving to improve, or even just figure out what the hell we're doing. I've been a professional writer for 16 years, and even now, I still don't feel like I really know what I'm doing. But that's a good thing. In fact, it's really quite important to hold on to that feeling, that humility, because the day we stop feeling like that is the day we become parodies of ourselves. We stop growing, we stop trying to create new and interesting things. It's the day that we might as well hang up our hats and retire. So the point is this. If you're an aspiring creator of some kind, take hope. Because you may think that us pros have all the answers, and that we know everything, and that you need to know these things to be successful. You don't. What you need is determination and a willingness to learn. We do know more than you, yeah. But it's not some secret arcane knowledge that we were initiated into at midnight. It's just experience, learned over time, and you can learn it too. By actually doing these things and learning from your own experiences, you too can be as egotistical as the rest of us. And if you are a creator, if you're not a creator, just remember that what we do is a little bit weird. Remember, the next time you read a comic or a book or watch a movie or listen to an album or whatever, remember that nobody is more surprised than us if it turns out to be all right. Because at the end of the day, we're all just people, fumbling around in the dark like everyone else, and waiting for the day when the writing police knock on our door and tell us that it's time to let go of our massive egos. Thank you.